Hey guys, it's Tyler here. There's a topic that I've seen for years now. It seems to pop up all the time, and it's the plague of martials in class based games. So, your fighters, your barbarians, the like. People, particularly those that play Dungeons and Dragons or other class based fantasy games, tend to have this idea that oh, well, when combat's not happening, the fighter doesn't do anything. Because it's in his name, he's the fighter, you know? What's he doing if there's not a fight? This is a really annoying thing to tackle because it's so pervasive and it's one of those things that you repeat enough times and it becomes true. And so people play the fighter in games and then they're just silent. They're looking at their phones for half the game and they're like, and then they repeat it to everyone else. They're like, yeah, you can't really do anything when you're, oh, I like the combat. But no, number one, and you can stop the video after I say this because this is pretty much all you need to hear from me. Just because your character is bad at something doesn't mean you can't do it. So even if you have dumped charisma because you're min maxing or what have you, that doesn't mean you can't attempt to use diplomacy with someone. Play a low charisma character. Is a low charisma character someone who never speaks? Maybe. Probably not, though. They're probably someone who speaks and says stupid, out of context, irreverent, or just dumb stuff all the time, right? That can be way more interesting than playing someone who's perfectly average charisma, even. Think about characters in movies. Do they make the correct decisions all the time? No. So don't be worried about, well, I would roll diplomacy because my character would want to try and talk this guy down, but he's bad at talking people down, so I won't do it. No, I mean, sometimes we try things that we're not, even if we ourselves are not sure if something is going to work or not, we try it, right? I've got a wrestling commentary up ahead where I try things that I'm thinking in my head, that's not going to work, but I try it anyways because you can never really be sure until you do it. And again, we're measuring risk reward. Is the risk of failing your diplomacy roll or whatever basically nothing? You're in the same situation. Is the reward you avoid getting into a combat where you potentially die? Then why are you not doing it, right? And that's just on the mechanical front of things, not even to consider the roleplay part of things. Beyond that, though, there are plenty of considerations. Fighter is that's one word. That's one aspect of your class, right? And classes by and large in these games are dictating broadly what your characters can do in combat situations and whether or not they can cast magic. Fighter, it hits people in combat or shoots people with a bow in combat, can't cast magic. A mage gets a familiar and can cast magic and probably doesn't hit people in combat or use a bow of any sort. And you can go down the list like that. A cleric has access to divine magic, so more healing stuff, and can hit people in melee, but probably doesn't have the stats to hit people in melee or hit people at range. They're probably either strong or dexterous, not both, because they are multi ability dependent. This doesn't tell you anything else about the character. That all is up to how you allocate your skill points in games like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, and Pathfinder, Weird Frontiers. I'm trying to think of a few other class based systems. Uh, did I already mention Dungeon Crawl Classics and not Weird Frontiers? You get the idea. Think about fighters in real life. Do you know a fighter who's just a fighter? Well, let's take Muhammad Ali for example. He's probably an example of a very charismatic fighter, right? So maybe that's a poor example of the min maxer here. Nonetheless, though, he's always shooting promos. He's always talking shit every every time he's not fighting in between his fights. Bruce Lee, he was mostly an actor, right? In his own memoirs, or well, not memoirs, biography that was collected off of his own notes since his death was quite untimely, he hopes that he will be remembered as an actor, not a fighter. Again, probably an example of another charismatic man who happens to be a fighter, but he would probably be a fighter class character. As far as games go, he wouldn't be a bard. They have access to magic. Bruce Lee didn't do anything magical. He's just an actor. So he's got these skills to pay the bills, quite literally. He's also a philosopher, right? Think of farther ago, our more medieval context, Gotts von Berlichingen, Iron Hand Gotts. You may know him as the inspiration for Guts from Berserk. He was a pretty famous warrior poet. And in addition to being a physical combatant, he was a great military tactician. He led several revolts. He organized whole battles in addition to fighting on the front lines because he was from a period where the leaders led from the front. So he wasn't just this, bumbling idiot that's totally useless outside of a combat military context. Usually, those sorts of people, I mean, we don't remember them. They are NPCs of a sort in real life. Right? If all you're good at is combat, it's probably going to create problems when you are back home. As a lot of the theme behind Metal Gear Solid is what happens when soldiers don't have a war to fight in anymore. Well, they end up artificially creating violent situations to get themselves into. So even if your character is truly only good at combat, this creates a really interesting, maybe conspiratorial thing, maybe a turn towards evil. When knights returned from the First and Second Crusades in the Middle Ages, there was a big problem of them just wandering around killing random peasants. It was a big enough problem that several popes had to make several decrees and say, can you guys not kill, loot, pillage, etc., random people now that you're back here? And it was part of the justification of the Second Crusade was to get these guys out of the country and fighting somebody who wasn't Europeans. um, Samurai had the same issue. Um, there's a Japanese word which is testing a newly sharpened katana on a random passerby. It or a prisoner of war. The warring states period in China was in no small part due to the millions of fighting age Chinese men who only knew how to fight. So even if your only skill is fighting, there's still a lot of things to consider when you're not fighting. Your character's not sitting there looking at your phone or looking at his character sheet. Your character's bored out of his mind. And what do people do when they're bored out of their mind? There's a another level to that boredom though. He probably also can't get a job. But in a lot of fantasy worlds there's always fairly ethical work that needs doing that's violent based. And that's a little odd, right? So maybe also this can push back to the GM and require you to put in dry spells over the course of the campaign where it's just, yeah, you're not finding any work, you're not getting constant money. This is one of the issues with the wealth by level approach that some games do, where it's like, oh, you're level 4, you get 8,000 gold, you're level 5, you'll have 10,000 gold, and oh no, sometimes money should dry up, right? Think of other fighters in fiction. Dante from Devil May Cry. He's just about fought literal gods, and almost every single Devil May Cry game starts with him being flat broke and needing to go out and fight. He is more than happy not having a job and just sitting back and eating pizza, but then the lights flicker, the power cuts off, and he's like, ah, damn it, I gotta go. I gotta go. Yo, what are your character's hobbies, right? That's a simple thing to think about. What does he do once everything's over and done with? If everything's been resolved satisfactorily, in a satisfactory manner, what's he going to do? what is he going to do with all of the money? What is he going to do now that the world's not ending? What is he going to do now that he's rescued his family from the hostage situation? Whatever his goal may be, what's the plan now? That can lead you to just thinking of mannerisms, just thinking of think of how he fights, not just that he is good at fighting. How is he good at fighting, right? There's different types of that, and that's why I really think if you're going to play a martial character, you should at least study up on how people fought with the weapons you will be using or the unarmed combatives, because fighting styles can tell a story. Look at any Jackie Chan movie, really. The Jackie Chan almost always plays characters that they get hit over and over again. That's what makes him so interesting as a protagonist and stands out in the Hong Kong action genre is he gets hit a lot. He's taking damage. He gets sloppy. He gets overconfident, right? Does your fighter know when he's outnumbered and know when to when to oh my gosh, cut his losses and get out of there? Is he the kind of person that's going to fight to the death or capture? Does he have a strong sense of honor? Is he a dishonorable fighter? Is he going for groin shots and eye pokes and that sort of thing? Is he a talkative fighter? Go to any martial arts class, and when you're sparring, that's that's an archetype of person, a person who will talk while they're fighting you. Sean Strickland, he's a pretty famous shit talker for talking in the fight. He's like, what was it? He said, "Why is your head made out of steel, John?" Um, or does he flip a switch? Does he go from this laid back, happy go lucky guy to kind of like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to somebody that could kill you when it comes down to it? Does he have other skills? I'm a martial arts instructor, but it's not what I do for a living. You know, I am a martial arts instructor, yes. I also enjoy and shoot firearms, yeah. But that also means I know how to take care of firearms. I know how to repair firearms. I know quite a bit about dangerous plants in the area because, well, dangerous plants grow here in Oklahoma as well as medicinal plants. And I do some of my own foraging. In our backyard, we have edible wild plants. We used to have morel mushrooms, which are edible. And of course, there are a lot of deadly mushrooms, which are not edible, but look very similar, not really to morels, but to other kinds. Think of a person a human being that knows how to fight. What else do they do? I don't know how else to explain it. Remember, think of your character as an actual living person and realize that they don't just fight. John Wick, that movie is lots and lots of action. Shauna will often say, how long is an action scene in a movie? Well, in John Wick, it can be quite long. But he's got a personality. He's doing things. He's doing other things while that's not going on. He's John Wick 1. He's looking at the video with his wife. That's not a big lore dump backstory. It's just a 2-minute scene where he looks at that video. His wife's giving him the car. His wife's giving him the dog, and then he moves on with it. Right? He's a character. While he's not fighting, you learn more things about him. Yeah. So that's just a frustration I have with it. The class-based system is by no means my favorite. I prefer other systems that allow you to sort of build your character, pick and choose, right? Why can't my fighter know about magic? Yeah, he can't cast magic, but maybe he knows something about it. Maybe he's read up on it. Conan, for example, he's a barbarian, but he knows about magic. He can't cast spells himself, but he frequently will point out, oh, this is the way you kill this kind of sorceress or this wizard or this witch. Oh, I need to do, he knows about these things, right? Yeah, so a little ranty rambly, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but have you guys noticed this pattern as much as I have with people not wanting to play fighters because they can't do anything, or people missing the point of you're a character and the class doesn't tell you what you can't do necessarily, or what you can do, it just tells you what you can't do. And nowhere does it say you can't be an interesting character. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Let me know what videos you'd like to see next. Let me know if you think I'm totally wrong on this topic. Cheers.